I'll tell you what, the end of this season can't really come soon enough, if I'm being completely honest. Man United losing there 1-0 to Brighton, deservedly. Brighton, if anybody deserved the win from that game, it was them, not United. It had to come with, what, a 97th minute penalty. Luke Shaw, what are you doing? Put your hand up there, man. Had such an imperious game before that. Wasn't a free kick that led to the corner, by the way. Shaw on Enciso, going all over the shop. Everybody was diving tonight, both teams. But, oh man, Man United away from home. Look at this for a stat. Sorry to make you sad on that this time. Look at that. Man United away record against the top 9 teams this season is absolutely abysmal. Let me turn that off. Abysmal doesn't even cover it. I don't know what word you'd use to describe that, but it is utterly catastrophic, our form away from home. That Martial's, that kind of sums it up. Just a frustrating night where you're screaming at it, where you're screaming at United to get the finishing in the first half. The performance was there in the first half. We tired significantly in the second. They got dominance of the midfield. Casemiro couldn't do anything on his own. Fred was playing further up. Neither of them were in control. They had the run of the game exactly like the FA Cup semi-final. And although Manchester United are still in control of this, it now means that we've got to look over our shoulder. Right? We win our game in hand against Chelsea, and Christ, if we can't beat Chelsea at home, the way they're playing this season, my word. But we play West Ham away on Sunday. After losing to Brighton away. After losing to Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs, City, Villa, Newcastle. Anybody else? Have I just done the whole thing? I think I just did it all. We now have to look over our shoulder. It wouldn't have been the most spectacular point by any stretch of the imagination, but if we had come away from that with a point, I would have felt so in control of this top 4 race. But now, I have to say that Manchester United are looking over their shoulder. It still feels like it's in our hands. I'm not here saying complete doom and gloom, but that was a painful game to watch, wasn't it? As I said, in the first half, the football was there. We played differently to how we played against Brighton in the FA Cup semi. We played with an aggressive press. We really went at them in the first 10. That's why Fred started. Rashford had a chance. Anthony had a couple of chances. Martial had a chance. What happens? Miss, 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 miss. It's almost like we're missing a clinical centre forward. My God, how many times have we said that this season? It's painful. But that's what this season is. We peaked with the game against Newcastle at Wembley. That was the crescendo of our season. That's what I called it at the time, and all the evidence since has proven it. Game after game. Aston Villa, you might say that was a little bit different, but that's Man United at Old Trafford. At Old Trafford, we are a different team. Away from home, the same sort of issues keep existing, and that was a game where, I tell you what, Casemiro and Fred, and you can choose which one of those got overrun the most. I'm going to say Casemiro, but he literally did get overrun. We played with a shape where we had 4 at the back, 3 in the middle, but Casemiro was sitting as a single pivot with Bruno playing alongside Fred, allowing Fred to be the more aggressive pressing of the central midfielders. And that was causing, I tell you what, fair play to how good Brighton are from playing out from the back with the ball. Lewis Dunk and Webster, they were inviting United forward the whole game. Man, that's some serious confidence they had. And they did it the whole game. They played through our press. But Fred, Man United, Casemiro. Second game against Brighton in the space of a few weeks where they've just dominated our midfield. Today, Caicedo wasn't even playing there. He was playing at right back. It was, who was it? Billy Gilmore was in there. And mate, they just had the run of the mill. They just controlled it. And that was the biggest word I'm going to use from that game, that lack of control. Ten Hag will be annoyed at that. There's going to be people that are trying to, as is the case with every single game, there has to be a massive scapegoat. There has to be a massive reaction. Somebody can never play for us again. Or it's towards the end of the season and we really are fucking fading away. Normally, when it comes towards the end of the season, you want your team to be getting there for the business end of it. Luckily, we've built ourselves that buffer because we are going to need that buffer. All right? It's not Captain Hindsight speaking there. You could tell that we needed that buffer going into that game. I was hoping that we were going to avoid defeat. And I tell you what, I really feel for him because I thought Luke Shaw was fantastic again in that left centre-back role. And then all of a sudden, just sticks his arm in the air in the penalty. What are you doing, man? You know you can't get away with that in VAR. As soon as it went, I was like, oh, please, please. You saw it and you were like, as soon as you saw it, you knew it was going to be a penalty. And McAllister, devastating penalty. As much as I want to have a go at how bad De Gea is at penalties, there ain't no goalkeeper in the world saving that penalty. Unstoppable. And now, as I said, it means that Manchester United are sitting there, cool, we're in fourth, we're in control, yes. But now we're 2 points behind Newcastle, having played the same amount of games with, 4 points ahead of Liverpool with the game in hand. That's what I mean. It's still in our control. But now Brighton, they're going to get G'd up. They win their game in hand. What are they? They're 5 points behind Manchester United. There are a couple of teams knocking. And I tell you what, all of a sudden that game against West Ham on Sunday, it still isn't a game where if Manchester United lose, it's out of our hands. Or maybe, Man United away from home. I'm pulling that stat up again. Shit me. It's so bad. It's so bad. Man United away from home. And as I said, if I'm going to focus on if I'm focusing on the big problem there tonight, it was in midfield. 100% it was in midfield. I know why Ten Hag started Fred, because you saw how much better Man United were in the second half against Brighton at Wembley, right? Eriksen, alongside Casemiro, the game was played around them. But because Fred played so aggressive there today, Casemiro found himself isolated a lot. He could have got sent off there. I think the ref let quite a few things go. Billy Gilmore could have got a yellow just before. There were kind of yellows that could have been given to both teams. I thought it was it was pretty fair about that. He was kind of letting the game go. But the end of this season is going to be, as I said, normally towards the end of the season, at this point, start of May, you're getting into the business. What, you got 5? How many games you got left now? 5? We've got 5 games left. You'd be hoping that your team will be hitting full. Man United will be coming into it. But instead, you look at that. You look at Liverpool. They've won now 5 on the spin. Manchester United, a loss and a draw in our last 5 games. We've got West Ham away next. That game against West Ham, it's gained significance and it's gained importance now. We've got the buffer. Thank for the buffer, because this team's fading. All right, that's what that performance looked like to me. The second half looked like a team that just didn't have the legs anymore, and it didn't really have anybody from the bench who I thought was massively going to change that game. Sabitzer came on, did a similar sort of role to Fred. Weghorst, well, he's not going to come on and get you a goal, is he? Sancho, he's not really that sort of player who, when you're playing on the transition and the ball's in behind, who's going to play in that style. Garnacho there tonight could have made a big difference in the bench. But, he's only just coming back from injury. And I tell you what, we might need Garnacho. The way that this is shaping up, I'm telling you, I'm not worried about it at this moment in time. Some of you probably will be. But I'm just glad we had that buffer. I'm telling you, I cannot wait until we sign a centre forward in the summer, man. I mean, how many, I don't know how many games, all right, there have been this season where at the end of it, I'm here in the match reaction going, if only we had if only we had an elite centre forward. If only we had better finishing. Just again and again and again. And in that first half, it was a very competitive, good game of football. Both teams going at it, good tempo. We were winning the ball high up in the first half. That's something we didn't do, I think, once in the second half. And that was a big difference because it meant that Brighton had the control and they dominated us. And they were good for the win, right? I'm not saying, as I said, look, I called it a deserved defeat. I can point at Rashford, I can point at Anthony, I can point at Martial, I can point at our team for missing key chances. And I will point at the midfield. Casemiro, it felt like he was literally overran because there were more bodies there because he was doing it on his own, but he still didn't play that well. Fred, because he was playing with that aggressive press, leaving space in behind, that was a tactic, it was a risk, and ultimately in the second half it didn't pay off. I don't particularly think that there was too much that could have been changed in that second half that wasn't changed, that could have impacted the way it went. Who else could have changed that in the second half? Well, Langer's not going to change it. Eriksen, you might say, could have brought some control into the midfield. But the way that it was being played, Brighton were always playing everything through the middle. And I don't know if Eriksen would have made much of a difference there at all. As I said, Luke Shaw, I don't know what you're doing, man. You played so well in that game, and you just stuck your hand in the air. And ultimately, that's the difference. If we had come away from that with a draw tonight, people would have shrugged their shoulders, said we didn't play that well. But ultimately, it didn't cause too much panic because we've created the buffer. But now we're looking over our shoulder. Brighton have won that game there tonight. It's Brighton and Liverpool. If we manage to spectacularly fuck up the rest of the season, touch wood that we don't, and don't finish in the top 4, it's going to be one of those 2 teams that catches us. If we didn't lose there tonight, we would have pretty much eliminated Brighton from that. But instead, we've let them creep back in. And I tell you what, I'm not nervous yet, but I'm nervous about West Ham now. Really nervous about that game.